But thanks so much for joining us for the third panel that we have with emerging vets and players. We really appreciate you guys joining us. We kicked off this series because as of now, today, May, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. And a lot of the work that we do at Emerging Vets and Players is around mental health. And so I first just really want to talk some background, kind of like what got us here and like why we created some of these panels. You know, we know that prior to COVID-19, a lot of the veteran population was experiencing mental health challenges. About 55% of them report not being able to seek the right help for their mental health needs. And then about 1 in 5 Americans experience a mental health problem each year. Since COVID-19, the Bob Woodruff report released that all of these things have been exacerbated, especially in the veteran population with the lack of services. And then also, obviously, we have about 55% of Americans. There's a Bloomberg article a couple weeks ago saying that they're feeling anxious and depressed. And so we're seeing it globally, we're seeing it nationally with the pandemic. And most recently today, the University of Ohio, they have a center called the Center on Trauma and Adversity, even came out with some few stats on what COVID-19 is doing to our emotional health here in the US. 86% of them have reported that they have one or more trauma or traumatic symptom, and 94% are reporting at least one or more grief symptoms. So we know more than ever, besides the population that Emerging Vets and Players interacts with, which is combat veterans and former athletes, that we're all in this together as far as the challenges around mental health and COVID-19. And so we hope that some of these panels can bring some practices during this time that you can start, or maybe you're currently practicing. And within that, we're very fortunate, Nate, as the co-founder of Emerging Vets and Players, JC's on as well, and some other people. As we walk this walk together, we're actually get the opportunity to interact with some experts in the field. And so we want to bring those and share them, not lock them up just for MVP. And so I'm pretty excited for the panel today. I'm going to jump off and go straight into, to kick off that. First of all, a little on social media. AJ, our marketing manager, would kill me if I don't mention this, but if you are on social media, you can tweet us at Vets and Players. You can also use the hashtag MVP Connection during this time. Just feel free to interact with us during the panel. We'll also do donations, and so if you do want to donate, you can text MVP Give to 31996. And additionally, we'll do a Q&A section at the very end of the panel after the panelists go through some of their work and experiences. and so make sure that you do stick around for that. It'll be the last 20 or 15 minutes of the panel today. And the opportunity, I'll kind of review about the Q&A, but really on the right-hand side, we have a chat box. If you're on the Zoom, you can go straight on there and you can just privately send me a message and I will put it in the Q&A. If you're on Twitter, just tweet us and our marketing manager, AJ, will capture that and we'll bring it up. And please, in the notes on the right-hand side with the chat, if you want to come on video or not, we will assume that you'll want to get on video to ask your question. So we'll pull you into the video in the broadcast. If you do not, please let us know so we can just read off your question or bring it to the panelists. So that's a little bit on the Q&A, and that's all of our logistics for today. So I'm going to kick us off by just simply asking, who is here and why are we here? And so the first is, I just introduced myself, I'm the executive director of MVP. And a few quick sentences on MVP. Unfortunately, we have our co-founder today to talk a little bit more about that, but it's a support program founded by Jay Glazer and Nate Boyer for military vets and former elite athletes in LA, Vegas, Chicago, New York, and Atlanta. We use the combination of physical activity and social connectedness to make members feel like part of a team again. And our mission is to match up combat vets and former athletes after the uniform comes off to give them a new team to tackle the transition together. And MVP shows them that they're not alone. So to jump in, I'd like to ask the participants to introduce themselves. And so I'd like to first start with our co-founder, Nate. So Nate, tell us a little bit about yourself and the folks that have jumped in. Nate, unmute.
Duh. Sorry. My name is Nate Boyer. I am a United States Army veteran and former, I say NFL player. It's so brief. I don't even know if that title counts, but every time I say that, Jay or somebody else says, hey, it counts. You're an NFL player. You played one game, okay? So anyway, I lived in both worlds. I was in the United States military for about 10 years total, 6 on active duty, 4 in the National Guard. and was able to deploy to Iraq and Afghanistan 3 times, and then go to several other countries as well. And then transitioned to a different locker room, to a football locker room, and went to college at 29 and played for the University of Texas Longhorns, and then had a brief opportunity in Seattle with the Seahawks. So as Jacob mentioned about MVP, noticing the similarities, not in what we do on the battlefield or the ball field, but the similarities with the identity and the camaraderie, and being a part of something elite, and sacrificing for the man on your left and right in a very different way to make the mission successful, but also the struggles that come when that career ends, when that uniform has to come off. We're often in our 20s and 30s at best, if you're really lucky, into your 40s, and it's a different type of mission. It's a different type of team, and you're not able to, or you often feel like you'll never be great again, and you'll never do anything as good as you did before. And you got a lot of life left, but it feels in some ways that it's over. And that's a scary thing. So that's why MVP was formed. And that's a little bit about my personal connection to it. And I'm just proud to be here, proud to be a part of these last 4.5 years of our growth, and happy to join you guys today.
Thanks, Nate. Appreciate it. I'm going to kick it to JC, our National Director for MVP, to introduce himself.
Hey, so I'm a veteran. I did 20 years in the military, and was fortunate enough to serve 11 combat tours, and also go to a number of different locations around the world doing really fun stuff. After my final deployment, I struggled with post-traumatic stress, and was diagnosed with severe post-traumatic stress. And a lot of what helped me, there were a number of things, holistic kind of treatments that helped me, but one of them was finding meditation and understanding the meditation and how the actual physiological part of the brain works. Since getting out, I've spent the last 4.5 years, working with corporations and professional sports teams on leadership and culture. I was fortunate enough to write 2 books about kind of some of the things that I've learned in combat, and really excited to talk about something that's really, really important for not just veterans and not just athletes, but for humans, and understanding kind of the power that they have inside them, and what you can release with meditation. So, and sharing my experiences. So thank you for including me on this.
Yeah, thanks, JC, so much. And now we'll get to invite in 2 people that we've had the fortunately been introduced to through a series of connections, is Bill and Hartanto. And so they have some amazing experiences to share with us today about the world of meditation and mental health. And so I'll kick it to Bill to introduce himself, and then we'll hear from Hartanto.
Thank you. So my name is Bill Villafranco, and what I do for a living is I'm a money manager, but I'm also a philanthropist. And I was very, very fortunate to meet Jacob and Nate last visit to Los Angeles when Hartanto came from Bangkok to visit. I met Hartanto 17 years ago in probably the most difficult part of my life, after dealing with the death of a son and in complete mental disarray. And I was fortunate enough to meet him from a client who asked me to help set up a school in Bangkok, Thailand, to eradicate and reduce human trafficking. I got to know Hartanto over a period of a few years after setting up the school, and started meditating with him and learning his practice. From that point, I can assure you that my life is 100% different than it was in my deepest, darkest depression. I've dealt with some of the most difficult challenges in my life, including a daughter who was addicted to heroin, to a number of financial crises, but I really give the credit to where I am today to the man to my right. I don't know if he's to your left, but to my right. So now I'd just like to introduce Hartanto to you as probably my best friend and co-founder of our school in Bangkok, Thailand. So Hartanto.
Okay. Thank you very much, and sawadee to everybody. That's how we greet in Thailand. My name is Hartanto Gunawan, originally from Indonesia, and I came to the state. I graduated from the state, Cleveland State University. Before I went back, and I started my career all the way from manager to CEO of a company in Indonesia. Before 1997, I came to Thailand to become a monk out of the request of my mother. So I left all my businesses and came to Thailand, become monk, and then stayed in the jungle on an empty, deserted island in the northeast of Thailand. So it's a total change overnight of my life. From CEO, I had everything, and then becoming a monk, I had nothing. Where my life, my food, I have to beg for food every day to the villagers, where the villagers will offer me, give me the food so that I could survive. So I was a beggar being a monk in Thailand. So that's when I started to meditate. And every day when I was on an island alone, empty, and accompanied by snakes and all the animals, and I just sit down and meditate and contemplating. And 2 years I was on that island, and then another 2 years I moved to Bangkok, where I continue my meditations until finally I decided to quit and to share all these experiences. I didn't choose to go back to my business, but I chose another path, which sharing these experiences. And I met Mr. Villafranco 17 years ago. We set up the school, and the school purpose is to help prevent orphan, broken home, poor, needy young girls from human trafficking, domestic abuse, and violence. After 15 years of the school, our school is the highest success in the world. That in 2016, we received an award from United Nations, from UNESCO. And in the same year, 2016, we also received an award from the US government, US Federal Award. And then 2017, we received another award from the Prime Minister of Thailand, and the King of Thailand has been giving us a gratification almost every year. So I come to realize that meditation is very important in our daily life during my 4 years sitting and contemplating of my life. And the key to the success of our school is also by meditations. These girls, these young girls, they are orphan, broken home. So they all have a broken heart, broken mind, and depressed, very depressed, anxieties, all have the mental issues for all the girls that come to my school. So meditations is the key to change their life. Every day, they have to meditate twice a day. Why meditation is important? If we look at our life, every day, what we have been doing, shower to clean the body. Have you shower, clean the mind? Feed the body, breakfast, lunch, dinner. Have you fed the mind? Exercise your body, vitamin your body. Have you done the same to your mind? So if the answer is no, not yet, well, we better start, because a healthy life is a healthy mind and body. If we only take care of our body, sooner or later, as Jacob already described, and 1 in 5 people in America have mental issues, mental illnesses, mental issues now everywhere, especially in this coronavirus where we are locked down. So all this depression, anxiety, stress, I think are growing up even more and more than before. So meditation is the only way as a food for our mind, to clean, to shower our mind, to exercise the mind, and to give vitamin to our mind. I try to think of any other way that we can take care of this mind so that we can have a good mental health. And I cannot come up with any other way. So when we come to meditation, then what are we talking about? Why is it important, and what will we gain from meditation? Usually when we talk about meditations, mindfulness, empty your mind, or be at presence. But there is a lot more important than that. that we can gain from meditations. So the true purpose of meditations actually to research and to understand the simple laws of nature, like the law of cause and effect, the law of action reactions that we all know. But if we never research the law, we never understood it. Just like in any other physics, chemistry, just like in any other laws, we learn the theories. But if we don't do the practice, we never understood the law. So what we do, what we speak based on our emotion instead of based on the understanding. To understand the law, cause and effect, action, reaction, to see the ripple effects of an action, we must have a clean, strong, healthy mind. For example, if a terrorist, just by a simple action, press a button, blow himself up, the ripple effects of that actions all the way to the family, to the loved ones, to the friends, just by one actions, the consequences, the ripple effects, the chain of action reaction can make so many people suffer. Only the person that understands the law, the wisdom, we call it wisdom, that understand the simple law of cause and effect, that can change an evil, sick, or dirty mind. So since we try to understand the law, therefore in our meditations, we're not emptying the mind, or we're not clearing the mind, or we don't stay still. In our mind, we must actively think, researching. If there is a thought in your mind, in your meditations, if there is an emotion, do not ignore it, do not suppress it, do not reject it. Study it. What caused your mind to think? What caused your emotions? If you look at inside yourself, actually the cause is very simple. But the problem with us, we always look at the cause externally, subjectively. That will never end. All these external objects will never end. So if you meditate and research internally, what are the causes that make your mind keeps on thinking, that give the effect to your emotion, be that depression, be that PTSD, be that stress, anger, sadness, happiness? The cause are only past, present, and future. Nothing goes beyond this timeline. Past is your memories. Present is your senses. Future is your perception. Right? So PTSD, for example, if you look at what caused your PTSD, don't look at subjectively. If you look at subjectively, if you research subjectively, you will go all the way back when you are in combat. But I myself, for example, when my father beaten me up, abused me when I was a kid. So now my father passed away. So if I'm depressed now, the cause is definitely not my father, because he passed away already. But why I'm still depressed? So the cause is my memory, because whatever happened to me, whatever my father did to me in the past is in my memory. Whatever combat you had in the past is in your memory. So if you look at objectively, just identify it as a memory. Do not be in the memory, because if you are in the memory, you have no control over it. You cannot change history, you cannot change the past, you cannot change others, but you can manage your own memories. Just like a computer, when you type all the stories in your computer and then you save it in a file, name file A lot easier to delete the file named file A than to open the file and then you delete every stories. If you write down so many stories in that file A, so it takes a lot of time to delete all what inside the file. So this is what I mean by researching objectively. Look at the thought by your mind objectively, research it. So caused by your memories, your mind attached to it. When your mind attached to it, that means your mind think about it. When your mind think about it, then the effect is your emotion. A simple law of cause and effect. the chain of cause and effect. With that emotion, it goes back to your body, or your physical action. That's all. When you research, after you research the cause, past your memory, present is your senses, and future is your perception. Whatever your senses contact with the external objects, it will goes down either to your memories or to my perception. So for example, if I look at Jacob, and then if you are Jacob, the word Jacob comes from my memories. If I perceive, Jacob, you are a nice person, that is my perception. That's it. And then my mind think about it. Jacob, where are you going from here? What will you have for lunch? That is my thought attached to the perception or memories of Jacob. So this is what's going on in our mind all the time. We just never have the time to sit down, contemplate, research it, what's going on. That give rise to my emotion, and then that give the effect to do what I do, to speak what I speak. So the first law that you must research in your meditation, the law of cause and effect. The second law, once your mind attached to the cause, be that your memories or your perception, how to let it go, how to detach an attachment of the mind. Again, the second law of nature that you must research in order to detach, to let go the attachment of the mind. Isaac Newton called it the law of gravity. Whatever comes up must comes down. The Buddha called it the impermanent. Whatever rises must fall. Whatever comes must goes. That includes our emotion, our memories, and our perception. Example, when you are angry, when your mind attached to your anger will last long. But if you observe the law of gravity, just observe your anger rise, it must come down by itself, by nature, by the law, including our depression, our PTSD. So if I want to put a simple definition of depression or PTSD, is your mental state condition caused by the attachment of the mind to either your perception or your memories of the past. That's all. For example, if I perceive that my life, I have no friends, I have no one loves me, and I'm all alone in this world, this is my own perception. And then my mind attached to it. Since it is a negative perception, then the effect is the negative emotion. Begin with stress at the beginning. As my mind keep on attaching to it, become anxiety. Then the ripple effect continue. My mind still attached to it, stronger and stronger. Then I become depressed. So to let go this depression, this emotion, you must research and understand the law of gravity. Right? Let it go. Let go of what? Let go of the emotion. Let go, prevent the cause, which is your memories or your perceptions. And by understanding this, the two laws of nature, cause and effect and gravity, are the tools that you can carry anytime, anywhere, any place, that you can use it anytime, any place, anywhere, if you have mental issues, if you have a negative emotions. And eventually, you can even prevent the cause that will give rise to your PTSD or depression. Prevention has always been the best medicine. If we know what to prevent, what cause to prevent. If we don't know, if we try to look at externally, that we have no power to prevent at all. I cannot prevent you if you want to punch me. So, but I can prevent my perception or my memories, and to let it go. And when I get angry, I can let go the attachment of my mind to that emotion. That's how you keep your mind.
I want to jump in because I love this aspect, and I love how we jumped into Hartanto's work because it's so important. But this past and present, and I know Nate and JC will talk a little bit about this too. I think one thing that's so important to acknowledge, like Hartanto and Bill's work, is that it crosses over to different populations, right? Like at Emerging Vets and Players, we work with combat vets and former athletes, but you can see that, you know, this is a human condition. It's a human challenge that we face together. And I think that more than anything, Hartanto's work and Bill's work shows that we're sort of in this mental health challenge together. And there's some great practices that expand beyond just like narrowly in one field or with one population. We're seeing these practices being used in all kinds of populations. The second thing that Hartanto is really talking about that I love so much is this fact of like present, past, and future, right? And I think that we've talked about in the last panels with Susie and Steve, and then with Tony and all those other folks, is that your past really matters, and really understanding when Hartanto talks about research, we're thinking about how do you research your own life, right? How do you dig down into your own life? How do you find out what's causing those emotions? Because sometimes it may not be, you know, what happened 5 years ago, but it could have happened when you were a kid. It could have happened whatever. And Susie and Steve and I talk a lot about the hippocampus. It's like this beautiful part of your brain that basically stores memories. But when you go through an emotional, challenging time, it generally starts like a catalog, like a library catalog, and it'll go from the front of your memory. So when you were a kid, and then it'll work forward until it finds something that's relatively similar in your life. And so you may find that, especially during COVID-19, they're kind of going back really, really far, moving forward, and you'll have these like weird emotions come up. And so I love how, you know, Hartanto talks about research it, right? Like take it in. And the other thing about like letting go and the law of gravity that I love so much is the fact that Hartanto and I had this chance to talk about emotions. And for a long time, we've been told as humans to suppress emotions, right? You feel angry, you're not allowed to feel angry. So I need to do something to make myself feel like I can't be angry anymore. But with the law of gravity and being able to let go, at first you have to just acknowledge the fact that the emotion exists and to be okay with it and sit with it and then let it go. Otherwise it bubbles up more, right? And then we're just like, oh, we're not allowed to feel anxious. Oh no, I'm anxious. Oh no, I'm sweating. Oh no, oh no. And it kind of just spirals. And we're just saying, and Hartanto's talking about his work, that we really want to just acknowledge, I'm anxious, I'm feeling it, it's a time, it's going to pass, and just sort of let it go. But I wanted to bring that back forward, Hartanto, because I think it's so important to connect these links together. Continue.
That was really well done, Jacob.
Yes,
Very well done.
You put very well. You summarize it very well. So that's then come to the questions: how to meditate? There are only two kinds of meditations in the whole world. One is mindfulness that you have heard all over the world. Is a mindfulness meditations in which you're not allowed to think. And the second kind, that I call it the research meditations, is an active meditations. The two kind of meditations in one session of your meditation, be that 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, quality is better than quantity. So you do it both one after another in one session of your meditations. Begin with mindfulness, use your breath if you are comfortable with your breath. If not, just your senses. But in order to be at presence, as I mentioned, the cause is past, present, and future. Past your memory, present your senses, and future your perception. So stay with presence, which is your senses. And the most commonly used object is your breath. Just stay, put your mind as an observer, observing your breath in the mindfulness meditation. When your mind lost its object, its mindfulness, your mind wander, your mind think, and then the emotion arise, and then your mind realize it. Then, oops, what happened? Now there is an object to be researched, which is your thought or your emotion. Forget about your breath, forget about mindfulness. Now let's research the object. Put your mind as a researcher. Researcher meaning research the object of the thought objectively. Your mind must be outside the object. Just identify which one is the cause. Past your memories, present your senses, or future. And then the attachment of the mind to the cause, and then your emotion. After your research, and then back to your breath. and then continue as if there is no thought rising in your mind. Just stay on your breath. Keep observing your breath, and if there is a thought, distraction. What does distraction mean? It's none other than an attachment of the mind to a new object. The object is either your memories or your perception or your senses. So while you are meditating, for example, and then you think of your family, and then you realize it, oops, my mind wander. I'm thinking about my family. Now there is an object to be researched. Your thought that think of the family. The cause to your thought that think of your family, not your family, because you don't see them, you close your eyes, you don't hear them, they're not in the room. So the cause must be from your memory. Right? If a simple memory pops up, your mind attached to it, your mind think about it, and then your emotion, I miss them, I miss my son, I miss my family. I'll stop meditation, let me stop and I'll go out and see them. And this is the attachment of the mind. And so after your research, back to your breath. And so the two kind of meditations will complement each other, will help each other. So to have a good mental health, this is the only way that you can take to take care of our mind in order to have a good mental health. Right? The other kind you can have, but only temporary peace, temporary calmness, not until that the understanding, the wisdom that understand these two laws of nature and use the laws to live our life. Live our life based on the law. Don't break the law. You won't have suffering. But if we don't know the law, aware or unaware, we try to break the law all the time. We will suffer all the time. Just a cycle of happiness, suffering, which one is more? And so the lesser our mind react to it, the quicker our mind able to let it go, then the more peaceful time the mind has. There is no happiness higher than peace. And how to gain peace? Understand the law. Use the law to gain the peace.
I love it, Hartanto. And these practices are so important. And we'll jump into JC and Nate, because I know that they both use some of Hartanto's work either in the past or sort of in the present. But I want to tie this together, particularly because there's so many. Hartanto and I had a chance to talk about mindfulness and meditation and how they're kind of like two things that come together, right? Personally, when I started using the Headspace app tells you in the first couple sessions, like, picture yourself in a hammock next to a stream. There are memories, they're floating, don't pay attention to them. And Hartanto's actually saying, pay attention to the app and how it tells you about breathing, but when a memory comes by, explore it. And I think that's the difference, really, like in his practice. And I really wanted to pull that out because these apps are so good for you. Headspace and Calm are so great, but they do reflect a little bit more on the mindfulness side and a little less. They don't really charge you to explore emotions and sit in them. It's just more about like, how do I breathe and get myself calm and then sort of push everything out. So thanks so much for that for Hartanto, and we'll have more time for you guys to ask Q&A with Hartanto and Bill shortly. So I just want to move to Nate and JC, and both Nate and JC have had the opportunity to meet Hartanto and Bill and use some of their practice and work. And so Nate and JC, jump in here about how personally, even in your lives, you either use some of this stuff. How's it worked? How's it been challenging? What are some tips you may have for some folks who are here?
Yeah, I've struggled with meditation for a long time, with I guess just the focus involved, right? Because I was under the impression that it wasn't effective unless I was able to, as Hartanto mentioned, sort of clear my mind, and empty the thoughts. And that just, for me, was always, well, it is a struggle. It's a great struggle. I think it is for a lot of people too. And I think a lot of people that, I'm trying to call people out, but I think that a lot of people that say, oh, I'm able to completely let go of my thoughts and just think about nothing, are not being completely honest with what's going on. Because for me, it's a constant struggle in that passive form of meditation where I'm trying to not think of anything, or I'm trying to like ignore the pink elephant, like that's a common saying they have, like try not to, don't think about a pink elephant. And somebody tells you that, and like, that's all you can think about because that's what you just heard. So, and then my mind would drift, and I would probably start to do, perform a form of research meditation without realizing I was doing it, because my thoughts would go into a direction and I would start to think about something else. And whether it was an anxiety or whether it was nothing like that at all, just a random daydream thought or whatever. And so when I first got a chance to talk to Hartanto about research meditation and listen, from his experience and where that all came from, and also listen to his backstory in life and, where he came from and what he sort of left to move into this world, into the monkhood and into coaching and teaching meditation. And it was really inspiring and interesting to me because it was somebody that also lived on the other side of things, someone that built this professional career, that had a background that would, if you were to take those two worlds, being a monk versus being a CEO of a business in finance or whatever, they seem like worlds apart. So that was attractive to me as well. But also just through talking to him and understanding that it's not only okay, but it's maybe more beneficial to you if you're that type of person, to follow those natural thoughts when you are, just trying to slow the body down, focus on breath, do something meditative when those natural thoughts and worries and it doesn't have to always be bad things, when they come up, to explore them and try to understand why you have that reaction, why you have an attachment to a certain person or a certain word or a certain experience that may be somewhat developed through your experiences, but also on your own, something that may be, in a sense, imaginary or almost false, where we make things out often to mean something when they really don't. It's just an act or something that's happened, and or put the wrong type of meaning and an assumption that somebody else meant something when they said this, or I'm big on that. Like when I know somebody is upset at me, and it's taken a long time for me to be able to sort of understand this, I typically I'm able to realize that a lot of what they're upset about, there may be something I did that they don't like, but a lot of the things that they said often have more to do about them and something that they're going through, something that they're maybe feeling, an anxiety, a fear, or something that they recognize in me that's similar to them. And then it becomes projected in that way. So it's not about, and it's also not a reality or a fact of who I am because they call me a certain thing or say that I'm, I don't do this and I am all about this, and whether I'm being selfish or it doesn't matter. Often somebody says those things because they feel that way, and they've placed an attachment on what you're doing and your actions. And it's not the true narrative, because you don't feel that way. So like kind of having that understanding of how we process things and how we put a meaning often on events in our life or things that have been told to us or things that have happened to us. That's just not the reality. It's not a real thing. It's something that we have somewhat created. And a lot of that is through, conditioning, whether it's from childhood, whether it's going through an experience before. And it's interesting when you talk about PTSD too, because for me, I think it's just something I relate to because I've experienced it before, and everyone wants to put things in this PTSD category when it's not always related to any type of trauma or stress. Sometimes it has nothing to do with that, but that buzzword just means, oh, this happened to you before and you reacted in a certain way. So when it happens again, you're going to react the same way. That's PTSD. And for me, that's a little frustrating because I'm like, well, what if it's what if it's a good thing, you know? And I'm attaching expectation on a result because in the past, when X happened, the result was Y for me. That has nothing to do with PTSD. That's just something that happened in my life, and there was a cause and then a certain effect. It doesn't mean it's always going to happen that way, but I put that attachment on it, and that expectation, and that's where personally I run into almost more trouble than post-traumatic stress, is like expectation, you know, and then that develops anxiety when this action happens again, this event happens again, and I don't get the same result, especially if it was a positive one. You know, it can be challenging. So really taking that time to meditate on those experiences, and when I'm feeling that type of anxiety or worry about the result of something coming up, like we have Jacob and JC and other people on this may know, you know, we have a fundraising event coming up next week, right? And of course I can't help but, and we have a goal, you know, I can't help but at times obsess over the anxiety and the worry of like how that will turn out. Is that going to help anything? No. Is that going to move the ball forward and allow us to have a more successful event by me just obsessing and worrying about the results because maybe in the past I had something, a similar event that went really well, or a similar event that didn't go nearly as well as I hoped it would. And, you know, it's just what we do as people. We almost can't help it, but we can help understand where that comes from. So I guess we can help it. We can help understand where that comes from and mitigate that anxiety and mitigate those worries and fears and sort of let go in a sense if we do look into those things and dig into the why instead of trying to suppress it or ignore it, or just you know, pretend that it's not a real thing when it is. So I know I'm a little bit all over the place right now, but
no, that was great, Nate. And I think like to pull you
definitely.
in and we'll go to JC too, is like, I love this fact of like taking the time to process things, right? We experience this stuff. And I think sometimes we're just so quick to go from A, B, and C without actually taking time from our days to process these things. And so I'll share a really quick story. I told Hartanto the other day, which is, you know, we had launched our New York location, in mid-March when COVID-19 was happening, and there's a lot of stuff happening. I was getting text messages from friends, are you okay? I was getting, you know, there's just so much information happening, and there's a lot of stress and chaos. And so after that happened, I took the train down from New York to DC to go visit some friends and then fly out. And that was the first time on the train that I had like 10 or 15 minutes. There was no one on the train, which is also really weird because it's generally very packed train. So you had all of these like new things happening. So I jump on there and I can't read, I can't do anything. I'm just so anxious. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to pull up this like meditation. And I pull it up and I just start to cry because for that moment, for like 10 or 15 minutes, I'm like, wow, that I have been feeling so anxious over the last 5 days. I've been like shoving it down and like taking the time, like just to reflect and process what just happened to me over 4 or 5 days. It's a lot. And so, you know, whether you do it in a 4 or 5 day time and you kind of like take that opportunity, or like Nate said, like you get this opportunity during your day and you start to build in this practice of reflection, it's going to get better because you're able to process these emotions in these ways, right? So I'm going to hit it now to JC. So JC, tell us a little bit more about, you know, your practices, especially, you know, around meditation. I know you've had some great experience around that as well.
Yeah, so I'm going to be brief because I want to hear more from Hartanto because every time he talks, I learn more. I already had like 2 pages of notes from the last time I talked with him, and now I have another page. So first, I should tell you that part of my healing process was I actually became a Buddhist. And while I am nowhere near could even equate to being a Buddhist monk, I believe in Buddhism, and I believe that's a good way to move forward. That said, I'll also tell you that I don't meditate as a Buddhist. I meditate because I exercise my body every day. And as Hartanto talks about, you know, I take a shower every day. I work out every day, right? I clean, you know, my work area every day. And I believe that meditation is about cleaning your mind every day, about preparing your mind and for everything that comes to you so that you can accept it. And I look at meditation from a pure neuroscience place, right? So I think meditation sometimes has a very bad rap because it's like, you know, it's either hippy dippy or it's, you know, it's mystic or it's whatever, right? And I don't look, I look at it from a pure science point of view, right? So neuroscience has shown that meditation increases gray matter, all right, and neuroplasticity in our brain, okay? Specifically, the prefrontal lobe, or the prefrontal cortex or the frontal lobe, where attention lives, and the middle part of the brain, and let me see if I can pronounce the name right, it's the supramarginal gyrus, which is kind of where empathy and sympathy and compassion live, right? Those emotions that are so important. And we've seen, you know, in brain scans that is included. A lot of what Nate said, right, is a left brain versus right brain kind of conflict, right? So the left brain identifies that we are separate in the world, that we are our own functioning being, that we are not attached to things. Our right brain then says, nope, here's how we're attached to everything. And what ends up happening many times through trauma, and again, I'm just talking science. I'm not talking my personal beliefs. I'm just saying this is what science has shown us, that through trauma, sometimes our right brain starts to take over. Our right brain starts to take over because it says, here's how you are attached to all this stuff. And if you are attached to all this stuff, whether it's, as Hartanto talks about, you know, your memory, your perception, it creates this friction that kind of Nate was talking about, where we assign value to things without really examining their importance. We just assign value. And the logic side that says, wait, you're a separate being, right? The left brain, which says, nah, you know what? You're a separate being. You're different. Kind of gets drowned out. And what's funny about this is, meditation is supposed to really affect the parasympathetic neural processing system, right? Which is a system that goes on in your body without you thinking about it, right? If you have to go to the bathroom, that's your PNS, right? If you get hungry, that's your PNS, right? Your PNS sees you as a separate thing. It's a left brain thing, right? And what we have to do, and what meditation allows us to do, is bring that separation back into the brain, right? So what we do is, what Nate says about meditation is absolutely right. It's not about emptying your brain. It's allowing thoughts to come in and go out, and understand and learning that, hey, I'm separate from this, right? My PNS, you know, my being is not attached to all this stuff. This stuff exists, and I can have a relationship to it, but I do not have to have a partnership to it, right? So a partnership means I'm interacting. A relationship means it exists and I exist. So I live in relation to that. And what meditation does is allows you to be more relationship oriented and focus, and then that allows you to get away from your limbic system, which is where all sorts of fear and suffering, anxiety come from, right? Because your brain's totally set up in evolution for you to survive, and allows you to go and calm down and then go into your prefrontal cortex after meditation and make those complex decisions and say, that is why I react that way. That is, but before you can do that, before you can move stuff from your limbic system to your prefrontal cortex, you have to separate your left brain and your right brain. And you have to see, I I am not in partnership with these things. I am in relationship with these things. I am a separate being. And I think that, you know, and again, it's probably way too much science. You probably weren't expecting that from, you know, an Army Ranger. But to me, that's what makes it so important, is that it's a physiological, just like you work out your biceps, just like you work out your chest, you work out the neuroplasticity in your brain. Meditation is about exercise. It's about exercising that portion of your brain to be stronger, to be more resilient, to be more thoughtful. And oh, by the way, you get to have better attention. You get to have better empathy. You get to have better compassion, all these other things that we want. So, okay, that was way too much talk from me. I really want to hear more about what Hartanto has, because
thanks
I'm
so
learning.
much. I will open the floor for the next 10 minutes, 9 minutes. If anyone does have questions for Hartanto, send it to me in the private chat, and then we'll pull you into the video, or I can just say your questions. So we currently don't. Let me give a few minutes, Hartanto, to see if we've got any questions. But I do want to ask my own as we sort of get started. Tell us a little bit more about this like mindfulness and meditation like connection. I love this aspect of like being able to marry both, and that they're not sort of like separate, but they're equal, and they kind of come together. So, you know, how did you come to that conclusion, knowing that, and you and I've talked about like meditation is very popular right now, and meditation and mindfulness is popular, and sometimes people think they're doing one thing when they're actually like kind of not developing the full practice. So tell us a little bit more about that.
All this mindfulness?
Yeah, so you can actually talk about the effectiveness you've had with using both techniques, especially as it relates to the girls who have come in so traumatic, and why both you feel are so essential.
Okay, so, well, mindfulness that we all know is, if I want to use an analogy, so it will be like you are in the middle of a swimming pool, and you are having fun, and then one day you get tired, and then when you get tired, sometimes you get almost drowned, and then I want to rest, I want to relax, and then you let your body floating on the pool. So as long as your body floating on the pool, you are at peace, you relax. But the moment you move, all the water start vaporing, and you have to start kicking your legs again in order to keep afloat. So this is what mindfulness do. Right? As your body floating on top of the on the water, you are at peace. That gives you temporary peace, which also very good, because mindfulness also that the mindful your mind is, the willpower develop, the stronger your mind, confidence develop. And this is what I use for the girls in order to strengthen their mind. Wake up 4 o'clock in the morning, so in order to detach, to let go the attachment of the mind to comfort, because being lazy, or it's too early, I let me give 10 minutes, 1 hour. So that is just caused by the attachment of the mind to comfort. So if the girls fight that attachment, the willpower develop. So every day when they wake up 4 a.m. in the morning, without realizing that they develop the willpower in their mind. So when the curriculum starts, their mind is ready, their mind is strong enough. So when they say no, they really mean no. Because if the willpower is not there, if the mind is not strong, even though the wisdom say no, but the weak mind will find an excuse, right, to carry out. So then if you are back in the pool, if you want to be out of the pool, you must make an effort, right? You must research, you must study first, where is the closest point for you to get out of the pool. And then after that, you have to make an effort to swim and get to the stairs and get out of the pool. The same, now put your mind in the pool. Instead of water, think of it as a swimming or memories pool. Like your mind is in the middle of the memories. That's why your mind keep on attaching to all those memories and keep on thinking about it. Then your emotion So if you want to have a peace, right, your mind must be outside the memories pool, in which you must research, find the closest the closest point, the closest stairs in order to get out of the pool. And this is what research meditation do, to keep researching. I found the stairs already. I want to be out of the pool. And you, while you make an effort to get out of the pool, so sometimes the memories comes up again, and then research again, let it go again. Keep swimming, keep researching. Once you reach the point, you get out of the pool. Then that memories become calm, just like the swimming pool. Then you can see clearly what's in the pool, what is under the pool. As long as your mind in the pool, you can never see everything clearly. That's why to see it, you must be outside. You must look at objectively. And this is what that I emphasize to the girls, so that the best way to help these girls is not just by scholarship, it's not just by a guaranteed job, because many of them still ended up being cheated, even though undergraduate students, and they're still being cheated, they're still being abused. But none that of our girls, I ever heard the news that our girls ended up being cheated or abused after their graduation.
That's great, Hartanto. Thank you so much. And I do want to get to one question before we have to end the panel, which is from John Davis. And so he simply asks, like, do you guys recommend merely following a suggested methodology or using a guided meditation when you begin with meditation? So I guess the question really is, like, how do you start?
So, well, as I mentioned, the two kinds of meditations, mindfulness and research meditations. So mindfulness, just use your breath or your senses. Right? If you use the guidance meditations, the object is the noise that you are listening to. But since it is a long object, so your mind will attach to that object. So you have no chance to research. Unless your mind lost its mindfulness, your mind wander again. But if you try to be in mindfulness, the idea is to be on one object, and then your mind to be one with that object. That is the goal in the mindfulness meditation. So when your mind absorbed to that object, then you have a total peace. But again, it's just temporary peace. It will not give you the understanding. That's why the second kind, the research meditation, let that be natural. Do not condition your mind. Enter meditation just like when your mind take care of your body. Time for my shower, time for my breakfast, time for my exercise. Think of it the same, the mind for itself. Time to shower, clean my mind. Time to feed my mind. Don't condition the mind. Enter it freely, no cause, no conditions. And begin with mindfulness, with your breath, or can be your ears, or can be your senses. Just use it past, present, future. Your present, which is your senses or your body.
Great, Hartanto. And I do actually have one more because I think Angela's question is so great. So we'll go a few minutes over just for her question. But Angela says, I had a bad brain injury from a medication and it caused widespread pain in my body. When I try to meditate now or do yoga, it's so uncomfortable in my body. I can't concentrate on anything but the pain. Is there something I can do to work with the pain? Feeling so uncomfortable in my own body, do I befriend the pain?
Thank you for the questions. So I myself have pain all the time in my body because when I was young, I did a lot of sports. I didn't take care of myself. Now I have pain 24 hours all over from head to toe. If I didn't take meditation, I don't know meditation, I would have taken painkiller. But meditation absolutely helped me. So I use it as an object, the pain. Right? The best object to study the law of gravity, to research the impermanent, the law of gravity, is our pain. If you can meditate and then research this pain, if you can see the rising and falling of the pain with your mind, then you will understand that pain is impermanent. Right? It follows the law of gravity. If you are able to see it, I can assure you, physical pain will not affect your mind. That will become mental pain. Let the pain in the body, we cannot prevent it, we cannot stop it. Caused by birth, we will get old, we will get sick, and we will die. But don't let this physical suffering affect the mind. That become mental suffering by understanding the law.
Do the one quick example.
So the example is to see the law of gravity or the impermanent. If you hit your hands, right, see that feeling, pain, the so-called pain, it rise. If your mind not attached to it, right, don't put the label on it. Just observe, just study the law of gravity. It rise, peak, and it must comes down. But the moment you put the label on it, your mind react to it, ouch, hurt, pain, your mind will attach to it. Then your emotion, right, anxious or agitated or fear, whatever the emotion. But if you study it, this is how, when I studied, when I was in the jungle, I couldn't move because I was surrounded by snakes and the pain is all over my body because I never meditated before. So I studied that pain until I was able to see, pain is impermanent. It rise and fall. If you can see the nature of that pain, the rising and falling of that pain, it's so fast. It looks like a straight line pain. But if you are able to see the impermanent of it, sometimes you have a strong pain, sometimes you have a light pain, sometimes strong again, sometimes light again. If your mind able to see this, right, that is your wisdom, your enlightenment. It will not affect your mind.
Thanks, Hartanto. That's great. Well, we're going to wrap up the panel and we'll follow up with some. I know there was one last clarification on where we can find some of these practices. So I do want to ask one very last quick question, Hartanto and Bill, that you may have is, where can people find some of these practices? They go on YouTube. What are some ways to kind of interact with some of your research? And also knowing that we will start a series in May with Hartanto and Bill on meditation. So we'll offer that to the MVP members for anyone that wants to jump on. But until then, Hartanto, any places people can find that are good tools?
The best tool is this tool. I mean, it sounds crazy, but if anybody wants to talk to Hartanto, just let us know. And the best thing he could do is take you through a few guided meditations. And from there, you'll be able to pick it up and spend more time meditating. But there's nothing that we've found yet out there that talks about research meditation and how best to utilize it. So, my offer to you is the offer he gave to me 15 years ago, and that's, let me teach you. And I know that he would love that.
I do.
Yeah. All right, Hartanto, Bill, Nate, and JC, thank you so much for jumping on this panel with us and enlightening us with everything around meditation and mindfulness and mental health, because we know that this can be one of the practices many people within our community could really use. And so, as I mentioned, we'll wrap up here, and we will offer Hartanto and Bill up for guided sessions this month. And so be on the lookout for that. And then we'll kick off another panel in the next few weeks. This upcoming week, as Nate mentioned, we do have a fundraiser, but we'll conclude the next week. Nate, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, just thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Jacob, for putting this on, and Bill and Hartanto and JC for your words and participation, and yeah, for everybody listening in. But it's good stuff. Take Hartanto and Bill up on that offer because it really is awesome. And even if it's just 15 minutes you have that he can kind of guide you through a session. It really is valuable, and it's very simple. It's not super complicated. It's easy to do. It's just you got to take the action to do it. So,
thanks. Bill, did you have one last thing?
I did. I'm remiss in thanking all of you for all of your amazing work to keep our country safe. I feel very emotional at this moment, and I say thank you very, very much for all that you've done for every citizen around the world, in the United States in particular. It comes from my heart, and I thank you so very much.
Thanks, Bill. We appreciate it. Well, thanks so much. This concludes this the third panel. Thank you again, panelists Nate, Bill, Hartanto, and JC. And we'll conclude and see us in the next few weeks. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.